Hello and welcome to my drumming. This is part 24 and it's a song by Guns N' Roses called Sweet Child Mine. Now this is actually the very first song that I learned to play the drums for, so I'm surprised I haven't done it in previous videos so far, just because it's a great song to play. I love the song anyway, there's some really good drum patterns in it, and yeah, it's just great all round. So we'll get straight into it straight away. Before I start on explaining any of the patterns that we'll be learning, have a quick look at the music now. Here it is for you. So pattern 1 is 2 counts of 8. The first count of 8 only has beats on beat 1 and beat 8. So beat 1 is cymbal and bass drum together. Beat 8 is a triplet on the ride cymbal. So the first half of pattern 1 is literally like that. And the second count of 8, there is only one beat on the first beat. So that one beat comes immediately after the triplet that's on beat 8 of the first lot of 8. So pattern 1 is literally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, so a fast 1, 2, 3 and then 1 straight after it. So like that, straight away. That's pattern 1. Pattern 2 then comes in directly after you've played pattern 1 a few times. And again, it's 2 lots of 8 as we're counting this through for easiness of playing. On beat 1, it's snare, cymbal and bass drum at the same time. And then beats 2 to 8 are snare, floor tom and bass drum all together. Like that. I don't know how many are played then, but you get the message hopefully. The second lot of 8 in pattern 2 is snare, bass and floor tom again. You play those through 5 times and then the 6th beat is bass drum on its own, then it's snare, then it's bass drum. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So all the way through, pattern 2 is okay. Pattern 3 is a simple 4-beat count. 1, 2, 3, 4 on the hi-hat, beat 3 on the snare drum, and beats 1 and 4 on the bass drum. Now as you play the pattern through a few times, it's effectively a double beat on the bass drum because it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, like that. So playing it through, it sounds pattern 4 is identical, but there's an extra bass drum beat thrown in on beat 2. So it's okay. Pattern 5 is another 8 count. On beats 1 to 4 you have the hi-hat with the snare drum coming in on beat 2 and the bass drum comes in on 1, 3 and 4. Now on beats 5 and 7 you have cymbal and snare at the same time, and on beats 6 and 8 you have bass drum and hi-hat at the same time. So pattern 5 sounds like this. Pattern 6 is played on the ride cymbal. Again, it's another 8 count. Cymbals and bass drum come in on the 1 and the 4, with rides on the 2 and the 3, snare drum coming in on the 3. And then beats 6, 7, 8 and 5 are played on the ride, snare drum coming in on the 7th, and bass drum coming in on beat 6. So pattern 6 sounds like this. Pattern 7 is exactly the same as a previous pattern that we've played because of bass drum beats on the 1 and the 4, but it's just played on the ride instead of the hi-hat. So there's no need to run through pattern 7. And pattern 8 is a very simple beat that just has ride and bass drum on the 1, and then crash and snare on 2 and 3. So pattern 9 is very similar to pattern 5 in as much as the cymbal pattern is the same, because there's a crash then back to the beat, crash then back to the beat, but it's played on the ride instead of the hi-hat, and there's a crash on beat too. So exactly the same as pattern 5, but I'll just play pattern 9 through you now so you can hear how that sounds. And then pattern 10 is very similar in the second part, but instead of having ride and bass drum played, it just has the cymbal crashes and the snare drum. And that's on beats 5 and 7. And the first 4 beats of that is cymbal and bass on 1, and then 2, 3, 4. So all the way through, I'm aware that I've done that slightly back to front because I've done the second half of the beats before the first, so sorry if that's a bit confusing, but I'll play pattern 10 through now for you so you can hear how that sounds. Now pattern 11 comes through towards the end of the song, about 2/3 of the way through, and it's just part of the quiet bit of the song. Now there's a rim shot that's played on the snare drum in pattern 11, 12, 13 and 14. Now all these patterns are fairly similar because they have rim shots or snare drum beats played on 3 and 7, all of them hi-hat throughout, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And the bass drum appears practically in the same place. It's generally always on beats 1 and 4. Pattern 13, it comes in on beat 5 as well. Now the difficulty with playing on this kit rather than an acoustic kit is your normal snare drum sounds like this, and your rim shot sounds like this. So it's practically the same. So I don't know what I'm going to do yet when I'm playing the song through for you. I don't know whether to play the rim shots or not play them. But pattern 11, I've gone through where the beats sound. There's also a hi-hat that comes in on beat 1. So pattern 11 sounds like this. Pattern 12 is the same but with no hi-hat at the beginning. Actually, I've just realised that pattern 13 is slightly different because instead of bass drum coming in on 1, the bass drum comes in on beats 2, 4 and 5. So I'll play through pattern 13 so you can hear the difference. Pattern 14 is the same as pattern 12, but you've got one rim shot on beat 3 and a snare drum on beat 7. So pattern 14 sounds like... Now pattern 15 is the same as 14, but instead of a snare drum on just 7, it's 7 and 8, and there's a slightly different bass drum pattern because the bass drum comes in on 1, 4 and 5. So I'll play pattern 15 through so you can hear how that goes. Pattern 16 is fairly similar again. You've got snare drum beats on 3 and 7, but with bass drum on 1, 4 and 6. So this is pattern 16. Now pattern 17 is probably the most complicated when just looking at the music, because there's a couple of beats that happen on the and beat. So I've tried to show all of the 8 beats with either a cymbal crash and a rest sign, and then when there's a beat to be played on one of the and beats, so 1 and 2 and 3 and, then I've just detailed it as half a quaver. So have a quick look at the music now to remind you what I'm talking about. This is pattern 17. And from pattern 17 you can see that there's cymbal beats on beat, so cymbal beats and bass drum beats at the same time, because it's a... And those beats come in on beat 1, 2.5, 4, 5, 6.5 and 8. Okay, so the whole thing actually sounds like this. And then pattern 18 comes in, that's a 16 beat, or 2 lots of 8. You've got cymbal and bass drum on beat 1, and then rides on the 3, 5 and 7, and this pattern actually gradually goes slower as the song ends, so it's not a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and then repeated. It's sort of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4 as the song slows down towards the end. So we've covered the beats in the first 8. The second 8 then have cymbal crash and bass drum on beat 1 and beat 5, with just ride cymbals on beat 3 and beat 7, and then right at the end there's another cymbal crash, which would then effectively be the first beat of the next bar. And that's then through for you. Now, I suppose at the very end of the song, with the instructions, I've shown that as the song finishes, there is then, at the end of the song, but that's just as the song finishes, just gradually as it fades out. So I haven't actually shown the music to those through yet. But yeah, hopefully that all makes sense. What I'm now going to do is play through the whole song for you so you can hear everything from start to finish. So yeah, this is Sweet Child of Mine by Guns N' Roses. Hope you like it. So there we go, all the way through. There was a couple of times when the hi-hat didn't work. It was just going into the bits where there's rim shots. I opened it twice, with the only 2 times where it needs to come in, and it just, sometimes unless you get the cymbal just at the right angle, it doesn't make the noise. So it's fine on 3 of those, but not on the last one. So yeah, that's just, hopefully you understand that you can see the cymbals, so you can see the bit that I'm trying to play. And also, where I've played this song live so many times, I've added in a few extra bass drum beats, so if you're following this through and you think that what I'm playing doesn't slightly match the music completely, then it might be because I have thrown in a couple just from extra bass drum beats that I've added rather than actually how the original is. So have a look at the music, that's the thing that's correct. If I've played it not 100%, it's because I've sort of merged the original with the way that I've ended up playing it. But ultimately, hope you enjoyed it, hope you could play along. As ever, any questions please shout, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers, bye.